The government's announced a full-scale investigation into how the unvarnished thoughts of Sir Kim Darroch, our man in Washington, ended up on the front page of a Sunday newspaper. In a series of private messages updating the government here on President Trump, Sir Kim Darroch described the Trump administration as uniquely dysfunctional, faction-riven, diplomatically clumsy and inept. Number 10 insisted Theresa May, visiting RAF Northwood today, had full faith in Kim Darroch, but she has only 15 more days in her job. Her successor may be influenced by this presidential reaction.
You know, we've had our little ins and outs with a couple of countries, and I would say that the UK and the ambassador has not served the UK well. I can tell you that. We're not big fans of that man, and he has not served the UK well. So I can understand it, and I can say things about him, but I won't bother.
Number 10 said it had privately told the White House that the memos did not reflect the government's views, and their publication was regrettable. The Foreign Secretary echoed that at a press conference.
Of course, I made it clear that I don't share the ambassador's assessment of either the US administration or relations with the US administration. But I do defend his right to make that frank assessment, and it's very important that our diplomats all over the world continue to be able to do so.
President Trump meeting Sir Kim Darroch on the state visit last month. One MP said he wanted the police to investigate the leak.
I have today written to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police to ask that a criminal investigation also be opened into the leak.
One pro-Brexit Tory attacked Sir Kim Darroch.
Surely it is not his so-called frankness which should be the issue, but his lack of judgment which disqualifies him from his post.
I regret to have to say that I consider my honourable friend's intervention deeply unworthy. He is a diplomat of calibre and of integrity. Nothing in his reporting from the embassy could ever be construed as an attack on the President of the United States. All of it was reporting of the highest quality.
The government suggested a third country was not suspected of being behind the leak of Kim Darroch's letters home.
I think you've met.
We united Jonathan and Charles Powell, the brothers who advised Tony Blair and Margaret Thatcher on foreign policy, for this week's Politics Where Next podcast. Was the government right to rule out a third country's involvement?
Well, it crossed my mind, certainly. I first thought this was a sort of WikiLeaks type of thing, and maybe involving the Russians. But if the government said that, they probably have reason to think it, in which case they may have a pretty good idea of who the leaker is. In my experience, I don't know whether Jonathan feels the same, leak inquiry is a complete waste of time, because everyone knows who leaks it, but no one can ever prove it.
I mean, there've been a whole series of attacks on civil servants, on the Cabinet Secretary, on the former negotiator on the EU, all of a part by Farage and people from the Brexit side who seem to be keen to get rid of these people, and that's what I think it's about.
Boris Johnson's plans to hug the Trump administration close now look incompatible with Kim Darroch staying in his job. An end result some close to Mr Johnson will be only too pleased to see.
Well, joining me now is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Conservative MP Tom Tugendhat from the House of Commons, and with me in the studio, the chairman of the Brexit Party, MEP Richard Tice. Tom Tugendhat first. Is calling the US president inept, insecure and incompetent the work of a great diplomat, do you think?
Well, reporting on the situation as he finds it without fear or favour, not attempting to suck up to a foreign administration, and reporting back to the government that sent him and that pays his bills is exactly the work of a diplomat. That is half the job. The other half of the job is promoting and soft-soaping and attempting to influence the administration that he's dealing with abroad.
Right.
But reporting honestly is absolutely fundamental. If a diplomat doesn't do that, frankly, there's no point in having them.
Richard Tice, honest reporting.
Look, I mean, the reality is, how can he retain any credibility whatsoever to continue in his job, given that he's basically humiliated and embarrassed us with our most important trading and security partner? I mean, I find it astonishing.
Honest, unvarnished reporting.
Excuse me, he accused the President of the United States of being indebted to dodgy Russians. He said he could never be seen as being competent. That is not unvarnished reporting. That is a subjective judgment based on someone who is
actually
clearly... It is true.
No, it's not true. What he was doing was he was reporting what others said. That's quite different from saying that he had said it.
No,
he was reporting that it was gossip in Washington around at the time. That's what he was reporting. And it was gossip around in Washington at the time. It may have been false, it may have been untrue, but it was gossip around in Washington at the time. That is correct.
It's not. Look, the reality is he accused this president that he would never be competent. And he's humiliated and embarrassed us in front, on the global stage. How can he retain his post? How can ministers truly say that they've got confidence in him when clearly he's got zero credibility? The man should have offered his resignation as soon as this came out.
Tom Tugendhat, is he unable to do his job now that Donald Trump has reacted so strongly?
Well, first of all, I don't think Donald Trump has reacted particularly strongly. And secondly, after the WikiLeaks incident in 2011, when we read what American diplomats were saying about the UK, I think that we're in a very good position of saying, look, we know what diplomats do. Diplomats report honestly on behalf of their government to their capitals about the situations they find themselves in. And that's not surprising. That is, after all, the job of a diplomat. And several of the US diplomats in that period reported extremely rudely about several of the ministers who are still in cabinet today. One or two of them are still in cabinet today. So, we took it on the chin, knew that this was what diplomats did, and recognised that, that's just life. And I'm afraid if you're a grown-up country and you're a grown-up civilization, you're used to dealing with free press and free interaction, then I'm afraid this is what you should be used to. If you want to act like a child, of course, you can throw a fit and walk away.
Well, look, the reality is, this is an experienced diplomat who knew that his emails would be seen by dozens, if not hundreds of people. And when you write an email, you've got to think, what would this look like if actually it came out?
Sorry, these are not emails. These are private communications between an envoy of Her Majesty's government to Her Majesty's government.
That are distributed.
This is not gossip. They are not distributed widely.
These are cables that are distributed widely throughout the civil service.
That's not true.
It is true. It's over 100
Richard,
people
that's
seen.
not true. That's not true. The dip-tells, which are the widely distributed ones, are not the ones that contain what you think is salacious
This
gossip.
was not the most highest level of security, was it, Tom?
It
wasn't. Was it, Tom?
The letters that went to the Cabinet Secretary and that went to the Defence Secretary, the Foreign Secretary and others would have been seen by only tens of people, maybe 5 or 10 people. And the very fact that this is so incredibly unusual tells you how reliable our system used to be. And the very fact that this is being so politicised and that our civil service is being drawn in this way into political game playing by cheap politicians is absolutely outrageous. It's a complete disgrace.
It is a disgrace that this man has not offered his resignation, given that he's embarrassed and humiliated our nation, and he should go.
Have you got an ulterior motive here? Because Nigel Farage
Yes, I have. Absolutely, I've got an ulterior motive. I want an ambassador in Washington promoting a post-Brexit Britain, helping to negotiate a free trade deal. This ambassador, this embassy has been not very successful in that. And the sooner he goes, I would like to have a business person doing it, which is...
What about you?
Well, let's see.
Would you like to be
I'm chairman of the Brexit Party. I'll tell you what, I think I could do a substantially better job than, frankly, Kim Darroch has done in promoting a post-Brexit Britain, the opportunities and promoting a free trade deal.
We'll take that as a job application.
He has woefully failed us, and he should go.
Tom Tugendhat, how do you feel about the prospect of Nigel Farage or indeed Richard Tice in the embassy in Washington?
Well, I don't think there's much question about that, so I don't see any point in commenting on it. I think what's much better to focus on is the very fact that we've got a very serious problem in a culture of leaking in our country at the moment. We've had two major leaks in the last year, and frankly, both of them are completely unacceptable. We need to get the police involved.
How is a police inquiry, Tom, going to help promoting a post-Brexit Britain with our most important trading and security partner? That is much more important than an inquiry into a few cables and emails.
I think what's incredibly important is not the relationship or the potential damage to the relationship with the United States, which, as we've seen, is very deep and very strong. But much more important than that is the ability of British envoys, whether they be civilian or military, to know that the communications they have with Her Majesty's government are treated in the way that they should. Because if they do not communicate openly, freely and frankly with the unvarnished truth that is absolutely necessary, then you have policymakers in Westminster making decisions based on false information, gossip or hearsay, rather than on the actual detailed knowledge of commanders. And I've heard that from military officers today.
OK, is the problem in the Conservative Party, might Boris Johnson's team be behind this leak, do you think?
I doubt that enormously. I suspect that this is the work of somebody rather foolish, who is cavalier and entirely selfish.
The truth is, the Conservative Party, they are focusing on they're focusing not on the right thing. They're focusing on who leaked it. What they need to focus on is actually who is the right person now to lead our embassy in the United States as we move forward under a new Prime Minister.
Why might the pro-Brexit journalist Isabel Oakeshott have got her hands on these emails, these leaks,
no
do
idea.
you think?
I've no idea at all. I think it's fair to say that the civil service is widely known as being massively pro-Remain. Many senior servants have been trying to stop Brexit, and I suspect that there are a small number of civil servants who are actually pro-Brexit, and they're trying to sort of even the score. Maybe that's how this has come out. I don't know.
Is it really credible that the civil service would leak this?
Where else does it come from?
Tom Tugendhat?
I'm not going to speculate as to who may or may not have leaked things like this, but I do think that politicising people who execute the orders of elected representatives is a little silly. I think what we should focus on is why orders haven't been given clearly enough, or maybe why individuals aren't being given the instructions they require. But the idea that somebody who is ordered to go to Brussels, for example, and promotes Britain's interest in Brussels, is then criticised as being pro or anti-European. It's nothing to do with that. That's their job. That's exactly what they're paid to do.
Just moving, while we've got you in here, just moving on to a slightly different subject. A European Parliament committee recommended, quote, the harshest penalty after Nigel Farage failed to declare £450,000 worth of donations.
What's that got to do with this matter
Aaron
of state,
Bax
to do with our relations? I'm sorry.
I just wondered if you were worried about that.
This is utter nonsense, typically brought up by Channel 4. We're talking about a serious matter of state with our most important trading partner, and for you to cheapen this interview in that way is ridiculous.
The European Union is our most
not.
important
Our biggest single trading partner, Tom, is the United States. They're our biggest, most important security partner, and they're our biggest single foreign direct investor into this country.
It's a rather serious matter, though, isn't it, that Nigel Farage has been found in breach of European Parliament rules?
But that's a matter for Mr. Farage and the European Union.
Are you worried about it, though, the
It's
penalties?
got nothing to do with this interview about our most important relationship and whether or not the US ambassador should retain his position. And in my view,
sorry, Woody
he shouldn't.
Johnson's doing a very good job. I just see no reason why you should call his name into
I'm talking about the UK ambassador in Washington. I'm so sorry, Tom.
Is it right, though, that elected politicians get sizable donations from very rich businessmen and don't declare them? Is that right?
That's got nothing to do with what we talk about. We talk about...
Well, I'm talking about this.
Well, I'm talking about our most important trading relationship.
Oh, we've had a good chat about that. I want to just
That's a matter for Mr. Farage.
Question.
You know, we're talking about here leaks for the US and the UK trading relationship, and that is much more important than a few scurrilous allegations from Channel 4 against a member of the European Parliament.
Richard Tice, Tom Tugendhat, thank you very much for joining us.